Well, thank you all. Thanks very much for the welcome here. You know, of all of the counties that I've had the privilege to represent, I'm like, Woodbury County is a place to be on election night. It really is. And you've got so many good seats here, and it looks like you've got a chance to run the table all the way across the board. And I want to be here to witness it. And by the way, when the numbers come in, and I'm predicting Bob's going to win this, there's nobody more deserving than Bob. And then, of course, I'm partial to James and Cassie Loomis. Partial there. Cassie is one of her celebratory tonight. And she came into my office. She had the first page out in Washington, D.C. in my office after she interned for Marilyn Musgrave. And it didn't take very long, and I figured out that she was on her path to be my chief of staff. And because we think so much the same, and one time I didn't think right, she told me I didn't think right. And she was right. But instead she fell in love with James, came back home, and they started a little family by now. They've got a good start on one. Anyway. But it is so rich to see the young people step up and start to fill in the roles that we need. And you're doing this, and it's across this county. I'm seeing it. And people would come to me for the last year or two and they say, what can I do? What can I do? And I would say to them, you need to make sure that we have solid, principled Christian conservatives every place on the ballot where there's a name on the ballot so people have that choice. Get behind them and support them. Get them elected. When they go off to sit on the school board, the library board, the county supervisors, or wherever it might be, don't forget about them then. They need your help and support also. Because the forces of darkness will be in there immediately trying to pull them away from their promises to you, from their personal convictions. The forces out there of the complex are so utterly powerful. I wrote a book trying to explain it to you all, and I've made some progress on that, but it's deeper than I imagined also. But I'm looking at what's going on across this country and trying to feel the current. I sit in a couple think tanks in Washington, D.C., and that's one thing that turned out to be that COVID helped a lot, was that I can sit in on those meetings that otherwise I'd had to fly to once a week. Now I'm on Zoom. And the rest of them are sitting around the table, and I can interrupt whenever I want. I try not to do that because there's a lot that I learned also. So here's what I hear across the country. There's just a current across this country. And I take it back to my home precinct where I usually voted for years, first one, 7 a.m., don't get in front of me, I'm going to be the first guy. And Marilyn convinced me I should go vote with her today, so it was like noon. And I learned something though, that there have been lines all day in our little Sac County precinct, and from 7 a.m. all the way up to noon. It never stopped. We have a huge turnout there, which says a huge turnout of Republicans everywhere. And I think we've got that turnout in Iowa. I looked at the bottom of the ballot, and I was like, okay, we've got our County Conservation Board, nobody opposing there. All the way up through all our county offices, nobody opposing. Something like this is here. And I got all the way up to the congressional seat before there was even a token Democrat on the ballot. And that's a token Democrat. And you look at the governor's race, and it's still a token Democrat in the governor's race. And so Chuck Grassley was a little worried that Trump came in here and stirred things up last week. That was great that he did that. But I'm predicting Chuck Grassley's going to be just fine because Republicans came out in big numbers today from all of the indications that I've got. And we're going to see, I think Iowa's got a real good chance to have all 4 congressional seats Republicans again. That will be a great thing to see. Hold our incumbent Republicans and, of course, hold our governor's office together and all the way down the line, Mike Nagg. But I have this other special and favorite thing that seems to be the toughest race in the state, but a good chance to win it, and that's Brenna Finley for Attorney General. Way to go, Colby. We needed that. But Brenna was one of those other people that came to my office, and it was her first paying job in government. But she was a clerk in the Iowa Senate, and I would hold breakfast meetings on Thursday mornings at 7 o'clock in the Embassy Suites, and we'd have like 8 freshman senators there, Republicans, and we talk about how it was that the leadership was trying to pull us apart and get us away from our principal values. There was only one person, not a state senator, allowed to sit at that table, and that was Brenna Finley. Brenna sat there because we trusted her completely. I remember sitting at the end of the table, and she would just soak up everything, but she never leaked one word. And then after I was elected she disappeared on me. I didn't know where she went. After I was elected to Congress, I thought, I want to hire the smartest people I can find. And so, where's Brenna? and I got some people to go to work on that. I found out that she had taken her University of Chicago School of Law degree, gone out to California to Silicon Valley, and she was out there litigating the meltdown of the dot-com bubble then. And so I called her up and said, Brenna, how about taking a pay cut and come out to Washington and let's save our country together? And she took the bait, came out, became my chief of staff in a matter of a short period of time. And when she came home, then she ran for Attorney General here in Iowa in 2010. Fell in love, got married, has a little guy, and now she's back on this ballot again. Smarter, more seasoned, much better funded, and excellent in her campaign as well. So if we look good in this state tonight, it's going to be sweep the congressional seats, the House seats, re-elect Chuck Grassley, all the way up and down that line from Secretary of Agriculture all the way to Attorney General. When all of those seats, with Brenna Finley as the next Attorney General, she will dig into a bunch of things that Tom Miller has been burying time after time. And I've said about Brenna that, I know Cassie knows this, of all of the smart people that sat in my office, and you would know some of those names, I never thought I was ever sitting in a room with somebody smarter than Brenna Finley. Brenna Bird, excuse me now. That was her maiden name, and I always know her as Brenna Finley. So this is rich for me. I get to see people step up, the next generation step up and take a leadership role. I get to come here and say thank you to all of you for the solid support you've been cycle after cycle, year after year. And I have this life now that is, I'm actually leaving tomorrow morning to go down to Dallas to give a speech there to raise some money for conservatives down in the north part of Dallas, and then do a sporting clays shoot out there. I don't know how that's going to raise a little money too, I suppose. And then I come back here, and then I go to Tennessee for another speech like that. So I'm bouncing around a little bit on the speech circuit and doing the think tank over Zoom and selling a few books, and then raising grandchildren, 8 of them. And so 2 of our sons were going to be gone last weekend, and that resulted in 6 grandchildren and 2 dogs showing up at our house. Boom. That's an adjustment for Marilyn and me, but it was glorious. I'll tell you, it was glorious. So for the first time in years, 24 years of public service, I've been able to take a deep breath and enjoy the family that surrounds me. And we go to church on Sundays, and there's 3 of the King families who are there with us. So it's 16 of us sitting in a block, and we take half of 3 pews if it works out right. And then the babies get passed over your shoulder, and nobody looks back to see where they went. They'll find you soon enough. But it is a rich life here in the Midwest, and you've given me the privilege to have more life experiences than I ever imagined. I had to count this for the Trump administration. My job sent me to 70 different countries altogether, and mostly into the worst parts of the world, which I'm grateful that I wanted to go to those worst parts of the world. That tells me how much better we have it here, what the underpinnings of what makes this country great, and the failings in other countries. And I would come back from a country that was third world, and I could write you a formula to fix this country. But I could write that formula, but I'd always come up against the corruption, the vigorish, the fraud, and I never knew how to fix that. That's usually what's at the bottom of what doesn't happen in these other countries. But we here in America, we have a gift from God. And what has been undergoing, what we're fighting here tonight, is the people who get up in the morning, they sit down at their keyboard, and they use their keyboard like a little jackhammer to chisel away at the pillars of American exceptionalism. And they despise Western civilization. They despise the American civilization, which is the flagship of Western civilization. The pillars of our exceptionalism are laid out within the Bill of Rights. Freedom of speech, they attacked me for that, didn't they? Freedom of religion, they attacked me for that. Speech and religion in the press, and then the right to keep and bear arms, the right to be secure in your person, and the property rights that have been undermined by the Supreme Court itself. All of this is under assault, and the devolution of power is going down to the states and the people respectively. All of that has been tackled by the Marxist left that has emerged in this country. And we need to identify who they are. When you see things going on in the school board, and you've got Merrick Garland sending his gendarmes in there to attack parents that just say, I don't want my 8-year-old to be taught these proclivities, that now you think, oh, I have a special protected status in law. And then they've weaponized the executive branch of government in every way that I can think of. And that all has to be stopped. So don't lack courage. Those of you who will be elected tonight, step up and be strong. And all of you who support them, don't back off. Hold them together. Be with them. Be there in the school board meetings. Be there in communication with them, doing events when they're off in the state legislature, when they come home. Support them in their town hall meetings. Go down to Des Moines from time to time, back them up. Be at the county supervisor meetings. Make sure that they have strong backing and the rest of the people know that. And then and at a school board meeting, when this stuff comes out, we've got to do this statewide and nationwide to clean up that curriculum. I mean, I've seen some things coming out there that I don't want to have to read, and yet it's being presented to 7, 8, and 10-year-olds. And it's amazing to me that the things that we never imagined would happen are drilled into us within a 2 or 3 year period of time. So the teachers union takes this leftist, I'll say it, proclivity agenda, and in a matter of 2 or 3 years, they spread it through all the public schools in America, and it's picked up by some of the parochial schools too. I encourage you, fix that, clean that up, be there, stare down those school board members. And if they don't come around, they've got the authority to control that curriculum. Make sure they do. If they don't, make sure we've got school board members that will. And we're going to take back this country one election at a time. Local elections is where our power is now. Build that foundation there, and out of that will come people that will go off to Congress, they'll go to the Senate, and who knows, we'll send a president one day. But also, I wanted to tell you this about Donald Trump, and my thoughts on this is that on the 7th of August this summer, if you'd asked me what I thought would be the best scenario, I would have told you, I think that if Donald Trump would take us through this midterm election that's happening and ending very soon right now, if Donald Trump would do that, and then step back and go, well, okay, I've done my job, I'm going to be the godfather of Trumpism, and I want to see some young, vigorous person step in and carry this banner because he has so many anchors to drag. That's what I would have said on August 7th. But on the morning of August 8th, Merrick Garland's Department of Justice raided Mar-a-Lago. There was no longer any pretense when that happened. They weaponized the Department of Justice and the FBI, and they did it for a political agenda, and they were going to find some information down there in Mar-a-Lago that they could use to indict Donald Trump on criminal charges. And I'm not sure that's not going to happen yet. In fact, I think it's more likely than not that they will do that. And we don't know whether they planted evidence or not. These are the CIA, FBI people that are in the business of doing that. Overthrowing foreign governments and providing and planning information and manipulating the media, which is entirely complicit in this, we know. So on that morning of August 8th, I thought, that's it for me. There isn't. If it's DeSantis or somebody else, they might be a good president. I think a number of them would be. But none of them would step in there, know where the bodies are buried, root out every one of those culprits within the executive branch of government that have failed us and failed our Constitution and failed their constitutional duties and undermined our country, and some of it has a treasonous flavor to it. We need to identify every one. If it's DeSantis or Mike Pompeo or Tom Cotton or any of the others, they're not going to have the drive to do that. They will not. DeSantis, for example, he's a good man, and I sat with him in Judiciary Committee all of his years in Congress. I know him well, and I don't know anybody that's more qualified than Ron DeSantis from an education and background standpoint, but he doesn't know where all these culprits are. And if he's elected president, he's gonna look at this and think, well, okay, I'm gonna go after some of these culprits, but he'll have his own legislative agenda he'll want to do, he'll have his own legacy that he wants to protect, and he'll let up sooner than Donald Trump. Donald Trump is not gonna let these people up forever. We owe it to our country to clean this country up and put the right people in place, clean up our executive branch of government. It's going to start with the investigations that will be done by the new Republican majority in the House of Representatives and the new Republican majority in the United States Senate. That needs to be vigorous, it needs to be aggressive, and it needs to be ideologically merciless until we pull every one of those people out to the front and the American people know who they are and clean this country up and then put the right people in place. We get a lot done tonight. 2 more years from now, we're going to get a lot more done. God bless America. Let's do it all together.